I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Friday. We're cruising toward the weekend. Free agency officially begins next week, but you know what? The NFL didn't want us to go into the weekend without some entertainment. There were plenty of fireworks to end the week. Since Dennis and I were last with you on Monday, we're going to get to all of that. And then you know what? We're going to look at our first 14 running backs in our top 24 running back countdown. Math is tricky sometimes. We're going to go from 24 to 11, do the top 10, and some more stuff on Monday. But Dennis, how was your week? How did this news hit you today?
Episode, more like epic. Am I frozen?
No, I heard you. It's pretty.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get back on. I was trying to get my screen back on. I was looking at something else. No, I'm excited about the news. I think it feels like a few days ago or at the Combine, people were mocking Ryan Poles for saying, hey, I expect to get 2 first-round picks if I'm going to move back. And got 2 first, seconds, and DJ effing more. So, I don't know. I think he did pretty good. I'm excited that it wasn't one of these. I'm going to drag it out all the way until we get to the draft to try to squeeze as much out of it as I can. Look, get the deal done. It's a great deal. 4 draft picks. At 9, they're going to be able to get a defensive help, whether it's a cornerback, whether it's an edge rusher. It's a very deep defensive class. You've got DJ Moore, so you don't have to worry about, wide receiver. You got Moore, Mooney, and for lack of anything else better, I guess, Chase Claypool.
Who once again is the 3rd best receiver on his own team.
And that's a good role for him. So we'll see what happens at the running back position. Are they going to turn it over to Khalil Herbert? Wouldn't it be something if they took Bijan Robinson at 9? Wouldn't that shake the world up?
Yeah, so the full compensation, for those of you that just missed it, the number 1 draft pick that was held by the Chicago Bears has been traded to the Carolina Panthers. In return, the Bears got the number 9 overall pick, number 61, which I believe has got to be a 2nd-round pick this year, a 2024 first-round pick, a 2025 second-round pick, and DJ Moore, which is the receiver they needed. So there's a lot of angles to hit this from. Let's first talk about, what do you think this means for Carolina? Carolina has long needed to figure out the quarterback position. That was probably the bane of the Matt Rule administration, was the bane of the Frank Reich administration in Indianapolis. So now he comes here. He has the number 1 pick. Do you have a feeling who you think they moved up to get?
I think so. There's a lot of talk that teams are afraid to pass on Anthony Richardson in case he's great, not because he's great. Now, Richardson, and we've seen it with Justin Fields, provides an exceptionally high rushing floor, but Richardson isn't quite the passer that Fields is. And admittedly, Fields wasn't a great passer coming in. CJ Stroud, phenomenal passer, underrated rushing ability. Stroud, I don't think Stroud will reach early career early career Dak Prescott numbers even, which was about 300 yards a season and 6 touchdowns. I just don't think Stroud is going to rush that much. But Stroud is immensely accurate, so accurate, beautiful throws at all levels of the field, can make every throw. They're going to need to do something, and it's not a terribly deep wide receiver class. I don't think 9 is where they're going to take anybody. But they're going to need, they've got Terrace Marshall, LaVisca Chenault, and Shi Smith, and a bunch of guys. So I think they're going Stroud. To me, I think that's the guy that Frank Reich wants. That's the guy that can do all the stuff at quarterback. Josh McCown is the quarterback's coach there. McCown, his breakdown before he joined him. Now, he talked really high about Bryce Young as well, but I think they really like Stroud. I think, to me, Stroud feels like the right fit. Does he have the ceiling that Richardson has? No, because of the rushing. But he's ready now. He's pro ready. He can read defenses. He can make the throws. He's going to get you in a good play. With the amount of draft picks now that Carolina has, they can invest in. They drafted a high tackle last year in Ike Ekwonu. They've got some good parts. They fell apart. They played hard for Wilkes after falling apart under Rule. Now they just need to have Reich put it all together for him. I think this is a great opportunity. Did they pay a lot? Yes, but to go from 9 to 1, it's going to cost you. They made a bold move. They're going to get their guy. They're not going to wait. And I think that the guy is going to be Stroud.
So what I'm going to be curious to see, we've talked about a few times, it is not an incredible free agent class for pass catchers. Maybe got a little bit deeper at receiver with Thielen getting released, which we'll talk about a little bit. But Carolina, in the span of less than a year, has really moved their best skill position players. Christian McCaffrey's in San Francisco. DJ Moorhead's out now. They got rid of Robbie Anderson in the middle of last year. He's free again, so they could always go reacquire.
I think if I'm the Panthers, I've chosen not to pursue Robbie Anderson.
I didn't realize his first name is Chosen. Chosen Robbie Anderson. What a tough look. But it kind of almost, one of the criticisms we probably would have had of Chicago the last 2 years is they went and got Justin Fields and they didn't give him any weapons. And now Carolina is similarly positioning themselves to move up and grab like the franchise quarterback. I'll be curious. Their best shot might be getting one of the one of the top tight ends, because that's probably a better group of free agents than wide receiver options right now. But we don't know what they're doing at running back. Foreman's a free agent. Are they going to bring him back? I know they still have Chuba Hubbard, but we haven't seen indications that he's necessarily a 3-down player. Matt is with us now. We are talking about the trade of the number 1 overall draft pick, and first, what it means for Carolina. Do you have a player you think that Frank Reich is targeting?
I feel like he's a Will Levis truther, and I feel like that's gonna fail miserably for Carolina.
They should all be fired. If they traded all this to go up, they should make Tepper sell the team. They should fire everyone who works in the front office, everyone on the coaching staff, and give them a lifetime ban.
Yeah, I really don't know who they take. I mean, if I were them, I'm taking Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but I don't know that I'm trying to think. I don't remember Reich ever coming out and saying he preferred any of the quarterbacks. So I really don't know.
He prefers 40-year-old statuesque white guys that are on their last leg, apparently.
So Will Levis, that's kind of what you're outside of the 40-year-old part. So I'm just saying, it's you're not helping your case any there, man. Yeah, I really don't know who they take. I mean, if you really want to go boom or bust, you're going Anthony Richardson and just hoping you can develop him over a year and then kind of build forward. Because as you just mentioned, like I don't even know what the rest of their team's going to look like. I don't love the landing spot for CJ Stroud or Bryce Young now too, with losing DJ Moore, interesting offensive line, no Christian McCaffrey. Like I don't know. This is a great landing spot. And I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to replenish anything. No 24 first round pick, losing second round picks. Like it's going to be.
Well, they traded their late second round pick. They still have pick 39, their own pick. So they still have an early second round pick.
They're going to have to get something. Well, let's flip over and talk about Chicago. So Chicago came into this offseason. Some people thought they were going to just deal Justin Fields and start over at the number 1 pick. It's very clear that was probably never the plan for them. They have a lot of cap space. They still have a ton of draft picks. They get a bunch more here. Matt, we'll start with you. DJ Moore coming in. What else would you like to see Chicago do this offseason? And how do you feel about the Bears, who were kind of a frisky team at times last year?
I mean, I think they're in prime placement now to make all kinds of moves. I don't even know if they stick at 9. They could probably move back again and get even more picks if they wanted to. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see what to do. I mean, getting another pick in the first round next year, I think is huge, especially if, let's be honest, if the Panthers do take a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson here, I honestly think even if they take CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, they're probably going to be a bad team again. You may have just locked up another top 10 pick in 2024 that has some really good wide receivers coming out next year as well. So I don't know that they would go wide receiver with pick 9. I still think they need to grab a wide receiver at some point early. They got 9 and 61 from the Panthers. They still have, obviously, they traded their second round pick.
Should be 33, I thought.
No, they traded it to Pittsburgh for Chase Claypool, so they don't have that. Right. Which is why if I were them, I'd trade back again if I could, just to get more draft capital. But I think offensive line would be big at 9. There should be a decent amount of offensive linemen still available there. I really think you need to start building out that line a little bit more around Justin Fields, because you can get a decent wide receiver in this with that 61st pick if you wait. But I think they will come away with another wide receiver in the first 3 rounds to pair with Mooney and now DJ Moore. But I think it's a great getting a guy like DJ Moore. I mean, we saw how well, granted, Ohio State was playing. The team around them was better than most of the competition they were playing for the most part. But getting a wide receiver like DJ Moore who can create the separation that he can, we saw what a Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were able to do at Ohio State's system when they were able to create some separation and Justin Fields get them the ball. So I'm excited for Fields to get I don't want to say alpha, but a really good wide receiver opposite of Darnell Mooney.
The Bears also have pick 55 in the second round from the Roquan Smith trade. I knew they still had a second round. I couldn't remember where it was. So they have 55 and 61. So they have a couple of second rounds still in there. So that was the big news today. The big news a couple of days ago was Daniel Jones, on the cusp of the franchise tag deadline, gets a 4-year, $160 million deal to stay with the New York Giants, which subsequently allows them to place the non-exclusive franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, improving the chances they can keep both of them. Dennis, what do you think about Jones' deal, and what does it mean that they were able to also tag Barkley?
I think the Jones deal was huge, so they could tag Barkley. Now, after a couple of years, it's for them to give him a couple years to keep making strides. And if he doesn't and they need to move on, they'll be going up. Barkley kind of gets the shaft, but we said on previous shows, running back is the more replaceable position. And ideally, that if it came down to, and they didn't sign Jones, that we felt they would tag Daniel Jones and let Barkley walk. Well, they were able to get the deal done. Is Barkley going to be mopey about it? They're going to try and get a deal done. Barkley is a good enough back, I think, that it makes sense to, lock him up for 3 years. If you give him $12 million a year or $13 million, I think he's asking for 15. I think if you can get up to 12 or 13, maybe front load it a little bit so that if you have to get out of it after year 2, that you're able to, they could get a deal done to the point where in 2 years, if it's not working out, they can move on and not have really big cap hits. So I like the move. It was a smart move by the GM to get it done. Is Daniel Jones worth $40 million a year? Probably not. But, you're worth what the market will bear. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Daniel Jones got that deal. I really thought, at least in my opinion, it would have been smarter to pay Barkley, who seemed to be more willing to not necessarily take a hometown discount, but knew he wasn't going to be paid as the top running back due to his injury history, and franchise tag Daniel Jones and see if he can do it for one more year. Because now you're kind of tied into Daniel Jones, whether he can or not. We don't know that this year. You're kind of looking at this, at least for me, and saying, will the real Daniel Jones please stand up? Are we looking at the guy we've seen before Brian Daboll? Or are we looking at the guy who was with Brian Daboll? Barkley, maybe this gives them a chance to kind of give it one more year, and they did make the playoffs, although I think they were kind of a fake playoff team. I don't think they really were that good to maybe push forward all in one more year, and I do think in a way it screws Barkley, because if he goes out there and let's just say, unfortunately, knock on wood, he ends up getting injured again, like he's going to get screwed out of money in a long-term deal next year. So I get it from the Giants' perspective in some way, but I think I would have flipped roles here and probably paid Barkley and franchise tagged Daniel Jones.
Well, and with it being non-exclusive, Barkley can still solicit offers from other teams, which I would think there will be other teams that will make offers to either put the Giants in position where they have to match it or to potentially get him. Of course, it does. Those non-exclusive franchise tags do come with the 2 first-round pick penalty if you sign another team's player. So that's something to look out for. I'm like Dennis. I'm hopeful that Barkley gets
up 2 first-round picks for a running back.
Yeah, probably not. Now that Carolina's already made their big trade to move up to number 1, there's other teams out there. I'm never going to say never, because teams like the Rams also exist where draft picks are a rumor. Denver traded a first round and a second round draft pick to get a coach, so it wouldn't be that far out of the realm. Speaking of non-exclusive franchise tags, that's also what got placed on Lamar Jackson. Could not come to terms with a long-term deal. This gives him, as we said, the right to solicit offers from other teams. The Ravens have the right to match or get draft compensation. Matt, I'll start with you. What do you think happens now with Lamar Jackson?
Oh, man, that's a very interesting question. I really think Baltimore's put Lamar in the corner, and I'm going to be very curious to see what happens with Lamar. So, obviously, the exclusive franchise tag, for those of you who don't know, does allow him to possibly leave Baltimore if another team is willing to pay him more money. It gives Baltimore then the opportunity to match that. If they don't, he gets to go to that team, and I believe the rule is they get 2 first-round picks. Is that correct?
Yep, 2 first-round draft picks.
So, just with that being said, let's take a look at the if I can get my thing to work correctly here, which it does not seem like it wants to do. I wanted to take a look at the
Have you tried Viagra?
I have not. It's not
shameless plug for a sponsor, guys.
Not a sponsor. Could be. Unfortunately, they're not, so I will definitely not try that. All right, so let's go look at the NFL landscape really quick. Buffalo doesn't need a quarterback. They're not reaching out to Lamar. As of right now, it seems Miami doesn't need a quarterback, with them picking up 2 as 5th-year options, so they're probably not willing to pay him. New England, as far as we know, doesn't need a quarterback. They're not going to go pay Lamar. New York Jets, okay, there's one. Cincinnati, well, yeah, they're not going out to go pay Lamar. Neither is Pittsburgh, neither is Cleveland. Let me just speed this up a little bit. Jacksonville, not doing it. Tennessee, maybe, sure, we'll put them on the list. Indy, maybe, but I would bet they're going rookie quarterback because they're not that close to being a contender. Same thing with Houston, so I'm not putting either one of those guys on the list. Kansas City, nope. Lost the Chargers, nope. Las Vegas, maybe. We'll put them on the list. Denver, nope. Philly, nope. Dallas, nope. Giants, nope. Washington, maybe. Minnesota, nope. Detroit, nope. Green Bay, nope. Chicago, nope. Tampa Bay, maybe. Carolina, now, no. They would have been on this list. New Orleans, no. Atlanta's already come out and said no. San Francisco, no. Seattle, no. The Rams, no. Arizona, no. That is 5 teams in all of the NFL that might be willing.
The Atlanta one's
Lamar.
surprising because that was everybody's favorite potential
he was from the
destination.
area. Yeah, I really thought that there was a shot that he would go there, but it doesn't seem like he will. So actually, I'm going to take away the Raiders because they've openly said they want Jimmy Garoppolo. So it gives you 4 teams to go out there and match that or do better than what Baltimore did. I don't know that the Jets are going to do it either because they seem to be all in on Aaron Rodgers. So that gives you to teams like Tennessee who doesn't have the cap room to do it. I don't think anybody's going to be willing to pay Lamar more than what Baltimore offered. He wants more guaranteed money. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to have to sign the exclusive franchise right and just play for Baltimore, even though it seems like he honestly doesn't want to. But if he wants to play in the league, I think he's got no choice. So I think that we're moving towards almost a Kirk Cousins, Washington Redskins situation where he may be tagged for the next couple of years in Baltimore. And when he's finally has that chance to get out, he's going. Doesn't matter if Baltimore offers him more money than any other team in the league. He's not coming back.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get an offer because most teams around the league don't have enough money to put into escrow that Baltimore can't match it. So there's not a lot of teams with the liquidity to say, hey, we're going to give you $250 million guaranteed. We're putting it in escrow because that's the rules. And then Baltimore would be like, no, I can't do that. And teams are like, well, I don't want to. They don't want to negotiate the deal for Baltimore, which is essentially what they're doing. That's why the teams are opting out and saying, oh, well, we're not going to pursue it. Because now that doesn't mean they're not sitting in their offices going, well, we're not going to pursue it. But if we were, what it look like? People are doing that. They're trying to structure it and say, could we structure it to the point where Baltimore can't match it? And whether they can or not, I don't know. But they're going to take a look. I think Lamar goes back. I agree with Matt. He's going to get franchised, and maybe that gives them till July 15th to work out a long-term deal. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there is not a great relationship there. I'd be curious to see how that plays out the rest of this offseason. Another player who was set free, Adam Thielen, has been released by the Minnesota Vikings. Dennis, seems like Thielen in a weaker free agent wide receiver class might jump to the top of the list. What do you think about him getting his release?
He's running out of gas. I think he's a steady, solid receiver. Can still separate in short areas. He was never known for his long speed, though he could get down the field. I think he's going to take a deal somewhere, probably looking for a contender that needs a wide receiver. And I like the guy. Fabulous fantasy asset for a number of years. I'm not sure what he is going to bring to the table. I'm not expecting 90 catches and 1,200 yards out of him next year. Could he get 750 and 8 touchdowns? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. That's what he does. So.
Any thoughts, Matt?
Oh, no. Sorry. I have no thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me, it depends on where Thielen lands. But if you had him in Dynasty, you're pretty well to the end of the great startable window for you probably were going into last year too. Do either of you guys put much faith in KJ Osborne? I saw quite a few people coming out saying this could make him a wide receiver too this year.
I mean, if he had played better last year, maybe. It seems like Minnesota is set on drafting a wide receiver this year, so I don't know if if you don't roster KJ Osborne, I don't know that I'm going out and trying to trade for him right now, because I feel like his value may be kind of peaking at the moment, because people may think he's going to be the 2. And then if they go out and say draft I don't know. Like, I don't know they go in the first round. So, but if they grab one of these Zay Flowers in the second round, like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, KJ Osborne's value just went right back down to 0. So I wouldn't value him that highly personally.
Yeah, it's a classic. Sell him right now. Go out, see if you've got him, see who wants him.
The last bit of news, Matt alluded to it a little bit earlier. The Dolphins picked up the 5th-year option for Tua. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Matt, does it make you feel more confident that they believe in his long-term future?
Yes and no. I hope that this means it's a good sign that Tua is doing better and that they believe he's going to be fine. I could also very easily see this as hey, Tua's fine. Now do you want a quarterback on a really cheap 1-year deal and possibly then turn around and trade Tua? We'll see what happens. I mean, I know I believe the report was they came out and said that they, see him as their option for a long time, whatever. And I hope that is the truth. Obviously, it was a very scary year for him. So I'm rooting that that's the truth, but I guess until I gotta see him actually be the start of the Miami Dolphins week 1 or him get some kind of contract extension, I'm just not going to buy into it, because the last thing we saw with Tua, if I'm being honest, left a really bad taste in my mouth. And I'm extremely worried about his future health overall, that I would still be fairly weary of rostering Tua.
Yeah, it shows me they believe in him. I think they're ready. He fits the offense really good. And even if it's wish casting on their part, they were faced with the choice. They were going to have to make that choice. You might as well lock him up for 2 years, because he was so good in that offense last year when he was healthy. And so let's move forward with it. And if for whatever reason, he ends up concussed again and it's time for him to go and retire, it is what it is. I'm sure there's injury language in there to offset some of the salary cap stuff. You've got to make it's all, you're forced to make decisions. And when that time comes, you just make the best decision you think you can, and you go forward. And if it doesn't work out, then you do something different. Is EJ Perry or whoever Skylar Thompson, is he going to be the answer at backup? I don't know, but
the answer is no. We saw enough.
I mean, he's no Ben DiNucci, that's for sure. I like the commitment, though. They like how he fits that offense, and they're saying, look, we believe we're taking all the right steps to mitigate some of the issues that he's had with his concussions, and he's cleared, he's healthy. We're going to move forward with this, and we're going to go win some games. I love it.
Yeah, to me, it makes total sense, because, a player normally that's a first-round quarterback at this point in time, we've seen they've talked about doing contract extensions with both Burrow and Herbert, because, you want to have them long-term. I think given what we saw from Tua last year with the injuries, I could see them not wanting to do a big long-term second contract this offseason. Picking up the 5th-year option allows them to, if he comes back fully healthy and still looks like the same player, to work on that next offseason without having a lot of pressure on them. Well, that wraps up the news. So we are going to turn our attention. We are going through our dynasty rankings. We're turning to our top 24 running backs starting today. We are going to go through 24 through 11. So we'll do 3 at a time, as we have done. It looks like all of us have them dropped in there. So, Dennis, I will let you kick it off. You want to give us your 24 to 22.
Joe Mixon, 23, Isaiah Pacheco, and 22. Wait, what I'm looking at? Am I looking at the right line? No, 24, so Jamal Williams, 23, Joe. What?
Yeah, I put the highlight
green one
through 24. Yes.
Jamal Williams, Joe Mixon, and Isaiah Pacheco at 23. I think Williams has a ton of TD upside, and he's going to sign somewhere. Like, I love him in New Orleans to pair with Alvin Kamara. Get Kamara back in the old role, catching a ton of passes. Let Jamal Williams, hammer it in there, score a bunch of touchdowns. Mixon, I want to have him higher, but he's just gotten so inefficient. And there's talk that he may get moved, he may get cut. I don't know about that, but and then Pacheco, I feel like Pacheco he could go either way. He could have been in or out of my top 24. He's explosive, doesn't have much wiggle, but he seems to fit what Kansas City does. And he's going to get a couple pass reps a game. We saw that at the end of last year. They're still going to bring somebody in to be the passing down back. But I like Pacheco. I think he can finish top 24. So I have him at 22.
Matt, how about your first three?
So at 24, I have Khalil Herbert. I actually thought about bumping him up here just last minute with the landing of DJ Moore, because I feel like that's going to open things up for him in the running game a little bit. Also helps having a quarterback who almost broke the rushing record. I just think this is going to help open things up. We also know he's a good receiver, and I don't know even if they do draft a running back, that they'll take too much away from him. So I like Herbert's chances to produce this year and next year as well, because he will be under contract for the Bears. At 23, I have Miles Sanders. I still think he's a really good running back. I think he's got a lot of, he has dealt with injuries, but I still think he's got a lot of work to go with his legs. This Philly just did not use him much these past couple years, which I think is going to help him. And hopefully wherever he goes, they're willing to build the offense and the rushing game around him, which it never seemed like Philly was going to. 22 for me was Alvin Kamara, and I have him this low because I just don't know how many games he's going to play. It really looks like he's going to miss at least some time due to a suspension based on the Las Vegas beating that went on with him and his friend beating up that one person. And I do expect New Orleans to draft a running back as well to kind of put into that Mark Ingram role and kind of move him back to the role that he was very successful. And he is a top 12 dynasty running back for like 3-4 years in a row. But I just think he's going to take a little bit of a stumble because of that.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. For me, I have Jamal Williams also at 24. I really liked the fit in Detroit. I'd kind of like to see him go back there, but we will see what happens. I have Brian Robinson at 23. I liked what he did with Antonio Gibson being a free agent. I don't know what they're going to do there with Washington. I liked Brian Robinson. I like the potential there. Still some questions, but I stuck him in there. And then I also have Isaiah Pacheco at 22. I liked what he did as a runner. He doesn't seem to be involved much at all in the passing game. I don't know if that changes. That probably would, for me, always cap his value with a team like Kansas City. Matt, why don't you give us your next three up?
Yeah, so that puts me at, 21? So I have Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones. I think he's still a really good running back. And he restructured to stay in Green Bay as well, which I think is a big deal. I still think there's going to be a pretty decent split between him and A.J. Dillon, which I think caps both of their upsides. And I'm going to be honest, while Jordan Love looked decent in that Kansas City Chiefs game where he filled in for Aaron Rodgers, just remembering what he looked like as a rookie and remembering when he was in college, I am hesitant on what I think this Green Bay offense could be. So that is why he comes in so low for me. At 20, I have Damon Pierce. Was really good last year, seemed to hit that rookie wall late. Even if they get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, though, I don't know how good he's going to be because that offensive line's likely not going to get that much more improved, and he's not necessarily a great pass-catching back either. So I still think his upside is limited, even if he's getting a ton of carries. And then at 19, I have Ramondre Stevenson. I still think he could be higher in my ranks. My big fear with him is Bill has just never really shown us a propensity to give a one running back. He's not the kind of running back I think that Bill is just going to let him be the guy. Would not be surprised if they go out and draft a guy. They drafted 3 running backs, I believe, last year. Wouldn't be surprised if they draft another guy at some point in time this year and they somewhat take some stuff away from him. And then on top of that, I still don't know how good this offense is going to be. Like, I think it could still be a bad offense. I don't know who they bring back Bill O'Brien, right? Is that who's coming? I mean, I just watched him have a
Yeah.
ton of talent with Alabama last year and just completely like shit all over himself every Saturday. Now he's going to be playing better, more competent defensive coordinators and defenses. And a lot of those games Alabama played, they were by far the better team. I don't know that's going to be that much better. So I am hesitant to move Stevenson up too far. He's, maybe he could be higher, but I'm a little hesitant on that offense.
All right. I have Alvin Kamara at 22, Aaron Jones at 21, and Miles Sanders at 20. I know Sanders is a free agent still, but I think he's one of the best backs left out there available. And he'll get picked up in an opportunity where he can kind of show what exactly it is he brings to the table. He is a really good back, and he played really well last season. Aaron Jones, I still think he's going to be the lead back in Green Bay. I like what he brings to the table. And Kamara, I agree, he's going to miss some games. But we're looking Dynasty. I still think he's got a couple years left in him, especially if they bring in a hammer and don't make Kamara carry the ball 150 times again.
Yeah, I guess for me, the question is going to be what Kamara's role is, because I have him down in this range too. First, for me at 21, I have DeAndre Swift. I love the talent and the potential. I think he's got top 12 talent, but Detroit does not really employ him that way. We've seen enough seasons now to kind of know where they're going to keep him.
But they're going to trust us. Trust us.
No, I don't think they're ever going to do it. I love the talent, but it seems to work for them in that offense to have him in that role. Number 20 for me is Cam Akers. Maybe I'm a little higher than other people, and you never know how Sean McVay's attitude toward Akers is going to flip. We saw it flip and flop a couple of times last year, but I was encouraged when he came back. He was getting quite a bit of volume. Henderson's obviously gone. And I liked what he was doing with the volume and the role that he had. And I think that could continue and that could give him some good RB2 value. I'm not rock solid, but I like what I saw. And then I have Kamara at 19. We've all talked about it. The talent is there. The suspension next year, 6 or 8 games, concerns me. I also think you're on the outer edge. You always talk about that 2 to 3 year window. This is probably the last 2 to 3 year window where you're going to feel good about having Kamara as a starter, depending on how much he balls out in the games he's there next year. At this time next year, you might be looking at trying to maximize value and move him if you're not a serious title contender. So that's why I'm there. Dennis, do you want to give us your 18, 17, 16?
Certainly. At 18, I have Dameon Pierce, 17, Derrick Henry, and 16, Dalvin Cook. Henry and Cook feel like they should be higher, but I feel like Henry and Cook are both right. They're at the age cliff. They could put up stellar numbers again this year. Finish on over the next 2 to 3 years. I feel like it's time for them. But he's a classic #2 to 3 year window running back. Other a better receiver to take the receiving chops off him, or somebody just to outright split time with him. It's a team in rebuild. They're gonna have somebody else. It's not going to be Rex Burkhead. It's not going to be Royce Freeman, RIP. It's going to be somebody else. It's not Dari Ogunbowale. It's going to be one of these young backs that, come in and are able to catch the ball well. Someone like Xavier Holiday out of Arizona State, a late round draft pick that, much like Rachaad White, showed up at Arizona State and ran well and caught a bunch of balls and has good size. So I want to be higher on Cook and Henry. I just couldn't bring myself to do it here in Dynasty.
So my 18, I have Dalvin Cook. It's not that I think he's going to be bad, but I do think we've seen him regress just a little bit every single year. And he's also had more and more lingering injuries. Minnesota, great offense last year, really good team. So this one might come back to bite me in the ass a little bit, but he's one of those players that I'd rather be out on a little early than too late. I just don't think you're going to get that value for him. So I've dropped him a little bit. For me, next up is Derrick Henry. He could honestly move up if he gets traded to a good team, because Derrick Henry is a guy that, like, I've tried to tell you is going to fail for, it feels like, the past 10 years in a row, and he's done nothing but shut me up every single year. I would not be surprised if he does it again this year.
We'll be right one of these days, Matt. We'll be right one of these days. That's what I keep telling myself, but he keeps showing me I'm wrong every single year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again. Because he's just got an extreme amount of talent. And I really think if he goes to a different offense, he could be really good. At 16, I have DeAndre Swift. I still believe in Swift, and even more so now with Jamal Williams probably not coming back to the Lions. And I know that they've said they're not picking up his fifth-year option. I actually think that's a good thing for DeAndre Swift. I think they're just going to ride him into the ground. They were so close into making the playoffs, and if he can stay healthy, I think he may be the guy that they just use for everything, just knowing that, hey, we're not going to have him here next year. Now, maybe that's not great for his long-term future. Maybe it helps him get another really good contract, but we've seen these running backs on these final years of their rookie deals about to get paid. Like, if they stay healthy, typically they perform fairly well. Most recently, Saquon Barkley last year. Now, Swift is not the athlete that Saquon Barkley was, but I think people forget how good of a running back DeAndre Swift was coming out. I mean, I had him above Jonathan Taylor, my running back rankings. It was DeAndre Swift, then Jonathan Taylor, because Swift can do it on the receiving side of things. He is a really good running back. It's just he needs to stay healthy. I think if he does, he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. So I'm still all in on Swift at least for 1 year, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
Yeah, I love Swift's talent. It's just Detroit scares me sometimes. For me, I have at 18, I have Aaron Jones. I was glad he reworked his deal to stay in Green Bay, but it seems like there are a lot of questions. A.J. Dillon's still there. We saw that start to take an impact on Aaron Jones. He's another guy I think is kind of at the tail end of his rock solid 2 to 3 year window. Then I have Miles Sanders at 17. I like Sanders. He had a career year last year. I think he'd do great if he goes back to the Eagles. Not sure that's going to happen, but I think he's a guy that could land somewhere. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He looked great last year. I like his potential. And then I have Derrick Henry at 16. Hard to know what they're going to do. The Titans have nothing going on, which I think is part of the issue if he stays there. I'm with you, Matt. If he got traded to the right circumstance, that could be great. It could also be a disaster. It's just hard to know. He and Dalvin Cook are two big-time running backs who are both pretty much being actively shopped, and you don't know what that's going to do. Landing spots could impact their long-term value so much. Matt, why don't you give us your last 5 in this group from I think it's 15 to 11.
To 11? Okay. So at 15, I have Javonte. I wanted to put him in my top 12, but it feels like every other day you're getting a different report about whether he's going to be healthy or not for the season. I believe in the talent, and I actually kind of like the offense now as well, hopefully, with it being able to get turned around. I still think they probably draft a running back to kind of help him out. But it's more of just not knowing what that knee, if the knee is actually healthy or not. So he's at 15 for me right now. And it's, to be honest, it's the same thing with my guy at 14, Tony Pollard. All the news out of Dallas is they're letting Zeke go. So there's a shot for Tony Pollard to have an increased role here. Still think Dallas drafts a running back and brings somebody in, because I don't think Tony Pollard is a guy you just hand the ball to 15 times and give him 4 or 5 catches a game. I'm also a little bit worried about him coming back from an injury. That's a gruesome injury with that ankle. And I don't know that he's going to be fully healthy to start off the season, but I like the talent. And as long as he doesn't lose that explosiveness, I think he's going to be a pretty good fantasy asset. At 13 for me is Travis Etienne. I don't know that he's going to be that great. I know he had some moments toward the end of last year, But we've already had his head coach and Doug Peterson come out at the combine and say we want to add at least 2, maybe 3 more running backs to the roster. That's not great, Bob. Now, I'm not saying all 3 of them are going to produce for you, but Doug Peterson has always run a committee. And Travis Etienne, in my opinion, is not the kind of running back that gets the same thing as I just argued with Pollard. 20 carries a game and 5 or 6 catches. I think his upside is limited. Now, I have him right on the edge of an RB1, so it's not like I'm saying he's going to be bad. I'm at RB13, but I don't know that he's going to be this like rock solid fantasy running back, mostly because of Doug Peterson. At 12, I kind of cheated with 2 of them. You'll have to tune in on Monday. I might actually show up on the show Monday because I have 2 running backs in here that I know Dennis and Matt don't have. And at my 12, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't even know where he's going to get drafted yet, but I think he's going to be a top 12 running back in year 1. Doesn't matter where he goes. He's that talented. He is everybody comps him to Alvin Kamara. I think he's Aaron Jones, but with 4.39 speed, which Aaron Jones did not have. Jahmyr Gibbs is an extremely talented running back. I think there's a shot that he gets drafted at the end of the first round this year. So if you're in a 1 quarterback league and you're trying to figure out if you want to get a running back, I would trade up to one of those top 3 spots because I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an absolute smash for you this year. And at my 11th pick, I have Josh Jacobs. We talked a couple episodes ago how me and you both feel like the Raiders bungled their decision with not picking up the 5th-year option and then now paying Josh Jacobs. If they go get Jimmy G, I still think that this offense probably revolves around Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams for the most part, like it did last year. And we saw how effective Jacobs was. I don't think the talent's ever been the question. It's just them continuing to use him as a workhorse. Well, Josh McDaniels showed us he's not afraid to do that last year. So if he does it again, Josh Jacobs is in for another really good season. So I put him at 11.
Yeah, you're right. Dennis and I did not merge our rookies in yet, but Dennis,
I only put 2 in, and I'm sure everybody can guess who the other is. But again, you have to tune in Monday to find out just how high he is.
All right, Dennis, you want to give us your last 5?
All right, so I have DeAndre Swift at 15, Javonte Williams 14, Pollard 13, Dobbins 12, and I have Ramondre at 11. So I think DeAndre Swift, because he has a really high pass catching ability, over the next, if he just gets used up this year in Detroit and moves on, I feel like somebody is going to say, hey, I can use this guy in the correct way. And that's going to be a good thing. I like DeAndre Swift's pass catching ability, and he can run the ball enough that, he can score touchdowns. He's big at 209 pounds. He can run the ball just fine if he just stops getting dinged up. Javonte Williams, I want to have him. I want to have him in my top 12, but he's coming off the injury, and it was a pretty good injury. And we saw the difficulty that Dobbins had with a very similar injury, very similar severity. And so I just kind of felt like this year and maybe into next year, he's going to be hampered a bit, and then we'll see where he comes back. He could likely move way up in my rankings. I have Pollard at 13. I think Pollard is going to be the lead back in Dallas. I don't think that Zeke is moving on. I think Zeke restructures, and Zeke is going to be, would I be surprised if Zeke started 17 games this year? No. Would I be surprised if Zeke out-touched Pollard? I think we're looking at a 55 or 60% touch share for Pollard. He just brings that much more explosion. I could see a situation where Pollard and Zeke are dead even in carries, and Pollard has 60 pass catches, 60 receptions. I love what Pollard brings to the table. And then J.K. Dobbins at 13, he came on at the end of last season. He looked good. He still wasn't 100%, but you could see the vision he has. And if he can get that speed back, he's going to be really explosive and dynamic. But we saw last year, if he doesn't get that speed back, he's David Montgomery plus, which is good. He can catch the ball. They just don't throw it to their running back very much. Now, can he catch it as well as Montgomery? That might be stretching it. but he's definitely more explosive and shiftier in short area. And then Ramondre Stevenson showed that he's a 3-down back. He's a great pass catcher. Will he get in the doghouse at some point? Sure. We're going to have a game where Pierre Strong carries the load and everybody's like, what's going on with Ramondre? Or Kevin Harris gets 23 carries and we're like, what's going on with Ramondre? And then 3 weeks later, we're going to find out, Ramondre farted on Bill in a huddle and Bill decided to hold him out of the game. Ramondre is a powerful runner. He catches the passes really well. He's good at pass blocking. I think he's going to be the unquestioned RB1 there for the next couple of years. I also think they move on from him like they did with Damian Harris in 3 years or however many years he has left.
Yeah, so for my last 5, I have Dalvin Cook at 15. Maybe I'm too high. Maybe I'm too low. I'm like you, Matt. His talent and production, potential is there. But I also, if he comes away from Minnesota and goes somewhere, they've talked about him getting traded to Buffalo and playing with his brother. I might actually drop him because Buffalo has yet to show us that they importantly, there has been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion from Sean Payton about wanting to go get other running backs, and that gives me a moment of pause for Javonte Williams and potentially for his long-term role. I have Tony Pollard at 13. I'm glad he's back in Dallas. I like that. J.K. Dobbins at 12. I'm hoping we get just another huge season. If they end up losing Lamar, he could end up being an even bigger part of their offense. And then I have Ramondre Stevenson at 11. He had an incredible year, was a force in all 3 downs for the Patriots. Matt has made me doubt it a little bit, reminding me about Bill O'Brien. But Bill O'Brien did use I feel like he leaned on one back when he was coach of Houston. So maybe I'll have some hope there. But I just liked what he did. And we've seen the Patriots before when they've had a very good 3-down capable back, lean on them in there. It's been a few years. They are capable of using the world's most defeatist committee. But I guess I'll let hope spring eternal here in March.
Don't the Duggars have fetus committees?
Oh, God. Anyway, a couple of questions before we get out of here. You guys both have Dameon Pierce in your top 24. I do not, because I have major trepidation that he ends up being this year's Michael Carter. Do you guys have any fear that the Texans, with their draft capital and salary cap space, go out and get a running back?
I think they'll probably draft somebody, but I don't know that it's going to be worrisome for Dameon Pierce. We see NFL teams seem to be going more toward these 2 running back sets anyways. And I think Pierce is probably one of the guys. None of us have him super highly ranked, right? We all have him down at the bottom of our 24. And I think that shows that we all know he's probably limited a little bit on his receiving upside, and you're probably banking on him getting decent volume and touchdowns. So, and that's where I would put him at. And again, I don't think whoever the Texans get at 1 or at 2 quarterback wise is necessarily going to massively improve this team. So I still think Pierce is going to be the starter. I don't think he's the long-term option. He's not going to be like their Nick Chubb or anything like that, who helps them work through bad teams to a good team. But I wouldn't fade him necessarily.
Yeah, I think he's there for the duration of his rookie contract. He's going to be the, half of the committee, half of the timeshare. They'll bring somebody else in that, especially in a year like this where there's so many good backs coming in, they're going to grab somebody in 4th or 5th round, and they're going to pair him with another 4th rounder in Dameon Pierce. What can Pierce hold him off? Well, it's possible. I mean, he may turn out to be second contract worth. To be honest, not a lot of the top guys contracts. So I think that in 4 years, will he be Houston Texans of the rushing and receiving for the running backs, and that puts him in the RB2 conversation.
All right, last question. What is one player in this range, 24 to 11, that you think has the greatest chance of ending up falling outside the top 24 at the end of 2023?
At the end of 20. So you're talking about the end of the season?
Yeah, who ends up being outside?
I mean, the easy answer is Kamara, because we don't know what his suspension looks like, or expected suspension. Mixon, because of his inefficiency, I think, if he gets cut and has to go to a new team, I don't think he's handed the starting role.
Mine is Cam Akers from my list, just because, speaking of farting in the huddle and ending up on some kind of inactive list, we still don't know what happened with him with the Rams last year. He looked like he had no future, and then he looked like their franchise. So,
well, I feel like you put a non-top 24 running back in your top 24 just so you could answer this question. So,
no, I mean, I liked what we saw from Akers, and it seemed like they got to a good spot, and that's what we always, that's what a lot of people thought he was going to be anyway.
I'll give you a little bit of a spicy one, I guess. I mean, he's kind of close to 24, so it's not like a massive drop. Aaron Jones. Wouldn't be surprising to me if he goes out there and doesn't have a great season with the Packers. It becomes the A.J. Dillon show, and then nobody's willing to pick him up. So the one thing I think a lot of people don't necessarily talk about Jones, he's also been a guy who's missed multiple games every single year due to just some lingering injuries, right? It's not like anything massive. Hasn't had a huge injury, but like he just gets these little nicks and bruises that hold him out like a game or two here or there. If A.J. Dillon does take a stranglehold that backfield and kind of moves Aaron Jones from the starter to like the second guy, I don't know if a team would be willing to kind of pay him and bring him in to be the guy. So he could easily drop out of that top 24.
All right, so real quick, let's recap our 24 to 11. Dennis, do you want to go first?
Certainly. Jamal Williams, Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, Dameon Pierce, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Tony Pollard, J.K. Dobbins, and at number 11, Ramondre Stevenson.
For me at 24, I had Khalil Herbert, 23, Miles Sanders, 22, Alvin Kamara, 21, Aaron Jones, 20, Dameon Pierce, 19, Ramondre Stevenson, 18, Dalvin Cook, 17, Derrick Henry, 16, DeAndre Swift, 15, Javonte Williams, 14, Tony Pollard, 13, Travis Etienne, 12, Jahmyr Gibbs, and 11, Josh Jacobs.
Yep, and for me, I had 24, Jamal Williams, 23, Brian Robinson, 22, Isaiah Pacheco, 21, DeAndre Swift, 20, Cam Akers, 19, Alvin Kamara, 18, Aaron Jones, 17, Miles Sanders, 16, Derrick Henry, 15, Dalvin Cook, 14, Javonte Williams, 13, Tony Pollard, 12, J.K. Dobbins, and number 11, Ramondre Stevenson. So that is our 24 to 11. We will be back on Monday. We are going to do our top 10 Dynasty running backs, and then we are also going to do a rookie mock draft. We're going to do 12 teams, single QB, so that should be a lot of fun. If you want to hop on that with us, look for a link to go out sometime around noon on Monday. You can join that. We will kick it off just before the show. We'll probably do 3 rounds. So it'll be a little bit of fun to see where the values are landing, especially now that we have the combine in place. But Dennis, if people are missing the combine this weekend, what can they do to fill that void?
They should do me a solid. They should go on their favorite podcast app. Give us a rate and a review. Those Apple scores matter. Download, listen, subscribe. Download and subscribe. Don't listen. Whatever works for you. But, we're sometimes goofy, and we can ease the honey-do list. So download, subscribe.
Yep, always something good to listen to this weekend. You can relive the glory of running backs 24-11 this weekend and look forward to the top 10 on Monday. Until then, have a